Choosing the right Airbnb market or location is probably one of the most important things you can do. What do they say? Location, location, location. So have you selected yours? Well, I just figured out what my market location is going to be, and I'm excited to share it with you at the end of the video. But before we get to that, I want to share with you some of the things that you need to think about if you're going through this process and you're trying to think about your first location or where you want to invest in. Or maybe you're looking for a second or third. So we're gonna go through that in this video, that whole process. So let's get right to it. One of the first things you wanna do is figure out what type of market. Yep, so what does that mean? Well, do you want a vacation sort of destination, right? Could that be like a national park, the Great Smoky Mountains? It may be beaches like Siesta Key in Sarasota, Florida, or San Diego Beach. Or it may be a lake home or condo. Or maybe it's a metro type. Maybe it's Austin, Texas. Maybe it's Los Angeles, California, or Tampa, Florida, where I'm at. You never know. The third type that you could consider is going to be, I would say, like some type of hipster. It isn't, like a hipster town or something like that. Maybe it's something like Asheville, North Carolina. Maybe it's a cool little town that you research and kind of people in a city kind of migrate to on the weekends and do some type of weekend visit. You could try to figure out those type of areas too. Number two, now that you know what type, now you want to pick a city within that type, right? So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're looking at cities is look at the demand. Are people starting to come there, and is a trend going up, right, for the visitors? Because that means a lot. It's all about supply and demand here, guys. So, so that's something you definitely want to look at. Another thing you want to look at is, why are they coming here? Is it something like, hey, it's a vacation destination, it's got a beach, it's got a cabin in the woods, whatever those things are, it may be a vacation destination. Or it may be a business travel situation where there's a lot of business travel in that area. Or maybe the town is a sports town, right? There's a lot of cities and towns with a lot of sports going on, and people are coming in every now and then. Then finally, maybe it's just a weekend getaway, right? You sort of look at, little areas that people can drive to on the weekends. Hey, let's go over here. Is anything available on Airbnb? Yeah, it is. Hey, I saw Stan's place. Cool. That looks like a pretty cool place. Let's book it. Anyway, that's number two. But before you make the decision, you're going to want to make sure there's an important thing that you need to look at, and that's called regulations, policies, ordinances, right? And that could be in the city or the town level. That's one of the biggest things you're going to want to do, because guess what? You could have all the best place in the world. You've got all these people coming in, but guess what? If it has rules and regulations that go against short-term rentals, that's a problem. So for example, Orlando, you may have the best house. Maybe it's near Disneyland or Disney World here. I should know that, right? So maybe you have a perfect place real near it. But if you look at the city ordinances, you'll see that there's actually boundaries. You can only have Airbnb short-term rentals within a certain boundary or area, right? And so that's very important when you start looking at it. There's also all kinds of different things that you need to look at. The other thing that I'll recommend that I learned here as I'm going through my process, you may think there's no policies or laws or any kind of compliance or regulations at all in this city, and you're like, well, this is just cool, right? Let's double down. Let's get 3 or 4 properties. No, you don't want to do that. You know why? Because when there eventually will be policies there, right? Regulations. And when they do, it's very unpredictable, right? So everything I've read and learned is you want to make sure that it's a very mature regulation. For example, the Smoky Mountains, Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, those towns thrive and it's part of their economy. So they're not going to make any changes there, right? So that's kind of important to me. So some of the examples is they may have a minimum stay limit. I think I saw in Tampa where, and I haven't looked at this too much, but I think I saw in there where it was like a minimum stay limit of like 7. So if you wanted to rent out for 2 or 3 nights minimum, you're out of luck. So check, that's one of the big things. Also the type of permits you're gonna need, and also different tax codes around it as well. So a lot of things to consider there, but you really have to do your homework. All right, now you figured out the location, makes sense, everything is looking good for you, right? Well, you got one more step, guys. The final step you want to do here is make sure that the numbers make sense, right? Again, you can have all the right location, the type, you got a vacation destination, you're in the city, right? And you make all these different decisions and everything looks good, but you didn't run the numbers before buying a property. And that's one of the worst mistakes you can do. Or, you just go with a gut feeling. Hey, maybe it'll work out for you. I'm not doing that. So some of the things you want to make sure you look at is the housing prices, right? The interest rate for the mortgage, the type of mortgage that you're going to get, right? You're going to want to also check cash on cash return. Also, one of the biggest things is annual income, and then take a look at your expenses. So there's some great tools out there that's available. Very important. Start learning the market, right? I know for me, I'm looking at, I'm going to reveal that in a minute, but I'm looking at that market and I'm checking 5, 6, I make it a habit to do 5 or 6 houses a night. And I'm starting to understand the pricing around it, right? Even though they're actually coming down a little bit, but I can say, oh, in this price range, I'm seeing 2-bedroom, 2-bath, or in this price bracket, I see a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or there's a 2-bedroom with an amazing view and a pool, right? And so you start to automatically start to profile those, and you'll become very good, and after a while you'll be able to look at properties without just really banging your head against the wall. Right? So that's one important thing that I've really been doing, is just learning the market. And I have been, this is kind of what I'm doing up until I buy it. So I made my decision on the market, and now I've been really running the numbers to make sure it's going to work for me. Are you looking for monthly cash flow, right? Are you looking for a yearly cash flow? Whatever your goals are with those numbers, make sure they work. Okay, that's all I can say. If it don't work for you, you got to go somewhere else, right? So pick another house. Consider subscribing to the channel. It's a brand new channel, and I really appreciate that. Like and comment below what market you're choosing. Okay, are you guys ready to hear what market I've chosen? You probably already guessed it because I made some references to it quite a bit in just the few videos that I made. But here we go. So the first thing that I was considering really is, so again, let's go through that framework. What type of market? Well, for me, I wanted a vacation tourism, right? But I also didn't want some big, extravagant sort of vacation location like Hawaii, right? So I wanted kind of a moderate cost sort of price point, something people could drive to, and that sort of profile is where I was focusing on, maybe even a weekend getaway, right? So that's kind of the things that I was checking off when I was looking for it. Now, when I did that, I basically said, okay, now I want a lot of demand, right? And also I was kind of looking at the Smoky Mountains. So within the Smoky Mountains, obviously, the 3 big ones are Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, and Gatlinburg. That's where I've decided to put my first investment in, and I'm super excited about that. So why did I choose that? Well, let's go through a few of those things. It's a very, very high demand. If you look at it, and I went out to the website for the national park, and you can actually see a trend where it's just skyrocketing. Like, I know 2020 and 2021 were like crazy because people were just driving to get away from COVID and stuff. But even that, if you just look at the past 10 years, the trend was going up like crazy. So to me, that's a great set of data points, right? You want to make sure that it has a healthy visitation, and you want to make sure that a lot of people are coming there, because again, saturation comes into the equation. So you got to make sure you've got enough people coming in, and then you kind of look at all the available rentals that are up. So you can start to do the math there and get a good idea if you just start looking at the numbers, right? And if you're looking at vacation areas, national parks is super popular. What I love about the Smoky Mountains is all your neighbors are doing it too. Everybody is Airbnb, or VRBO, short-term rentals. I'm kind of using that synonymously. That. So, that's really what I love about it too. Everybody's doing it. You can find cleaners, you can find handyman, all those resources, they thrive off of that, right? That's the economics of that area. So I love that. As I mentioned, mature regulations. Again, the towns all around that area, they thrive on it, right? They have boundaries. So the people that live there don't live in those areas, right? So it's very well established, and I love that part of it too. So did my homework there. That was really a no-brainer. That's you can find that. You may have to work harder in your location, but for me, that was pretty easy to find. For me, when I start running the numbers, cabins in that area, it looks like the prices are starting because they had a big peak, right? It was really a seller's market, and people were offering more than asking prices and all that, but now it's different. So it's starting to turn around, which is great. And so the prices are actually starting to tweak down a little bit. Everything that I'm seeing, prices drop, which is great. I am seeing the interest rate up a little bit. So you have to work your numbers. And so for me, I think what I found is for the mortgage that I'm going to be going after, which most likely, and we'll do another video on this in terms of the mortgage, I'm hopefully going to be chasing after either the jumbo or the 10% second vacation home. In terms of the numbers, you're going to want to make sure, and I think what I'm trying to do, and I think this was easier before this year, is I want at least a 20% cash on cash return. That's kind of my target right now. So that's how I'm starting to run my numbers. And then I also have a number that I want to get per year as well. So that's kind of how I started to put my numbers on there. But I think it's also important, you pick all these things, and I kind of went through this framework, but you know what? It's got to be a place that you really love. You want to make sure that you really love the place and the area. So I think that's important too. And so for me, I'm very excited about going to go hang out. Honestly, I've only been through there once, and I really haven't stayed at a cabin. So one of the things I'm going to take you guys with me as well. I'm going to do a trip up there and maybe stay in 2 or 3 different ones. The type that I'm actually looking for, maybe I want to stay in a pool cabin. Maybe I want to stay in a 2-bedroom with a view. I want to try some different areas too to kind of see, hey, this seems kind of out, but how far really is that? Or do I want to get something closer in? So I'll take you guys for a ride on that, but hopefully this is helpful for you when you're starting to determine either your market that you're going to start with, like me, or your next market as you continue to double down and keep putting that money out there for the real estate investments and the short-term rentals, guys. So very exciting. Hopefully you can tell I'm pumped. I'm very excited about this. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next video.